Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Mindy and we are making a 3-month recap of the first 3 months of 2026. I literally cannot believe that we're already past the first 3-month mark of this year. It's just insane how fast this year is going by, and I have 11 books that I have read in the first 6 months of this year. So we're going to talk about those today. So the very first book that I read in 2026 was Fearless, and I just have my books that I have written down in my reading journal, so that's what I'm looking at. So I have Fearless was the very first book that I read in 2026. That is the conclusion to the Powerless trilogy, and I must say it did not disappoint. It was, I think, a 4.5 or 4.75 star. It was very, very good, and I really enjoyed that conclusion. It was a wild ride. The trials that Peyton had to go through were fantastic and epic and just very well done. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed that book. And we were following Kai and Peyton on their last leg of their journey. They are coming home from their wanderings in the desert from Reckless, and so they are going back to the palace, and there's a huge plot twist that happens, and so it really changes the dynamic of their relationship. And Peyton has to go through a whole bunch of more trials in order to be proven all over again in a different sense. And so she goes through those trials and she comes out unscathed. I was rooting for her the whole time. I was just like with her. I was cheering for her. I was rooting her on, and I just really enjoyed that book. It was very good and a very good ending to that trilogy. And then I read Royal Assassin. So that is the second book in the Assassin's Apprentice series by Robin Hobb. So we were following Fitz. So in the first book, it really sets up Fitz's character and his story and just him at the palace and all that stuff. And him becoming an assassin. And then Royal Assassin is where he just continues that journey. And I feel like my brain is getting a bit fuzzy on some of the details, but I remember that there were a lot of politics, but it was very well done. Like, Robin Hobb just does such a good job of delivering such a good story, and it was just epic. It was just like truly good, and I think it was 4.5 stars if I remember right. And then I read Powerful. That was one of the novellas from the Powerless trilogy. So Powerful was following Adina, who was Peyton's best friend. Adina has a very, very sad story, and it's a tearjerker. It's extremely sad and heart-wrenching, but it's so beautiful, and honestly, I loved that book so much, and I gave it 5 stars. It was my first 5-star of the year. So Powerful was incredible. And then I read Assassin's Quest, which was finishing out the Assassin's Apprentice trilogy. I read Assassin's Quest, and I must say I really enjoyed that book, and I cannot remember what my star rating was, but I can put it on the screen. Actually, hang on. I have it literally right here. Okay, so it was 4.5 stars. It was just continuing Fitz's journey, and I do remember feeling just a tiny bit disappointed with how some of it went. So we were following Fitz as the kingdom was taken over. King Verity had left on his mission to go to the mountains and recruit the help of the elderlings, and in his absence, I cannot remember the name of the prince. The one of King Verity's brother, it was Fitz's uncle. I cannot remember his name for the life of me right now, but he was going nuts, and he was basically depleting the kingdom of all of their resources, and he was being an absolute pain in the butt, and he was just not a good character. Fitz wants to go assassinate him, so he actually tries that, but then it doesn't work. So then he has to go to the mountains to seek out Verity. So he does that, and that journey takes up a lot of the book. He does find Verity, and it's actually a pretty good ending, but yeah, it was a good book. And then I read Gemina in February, going into February now. So Gemina is the second book in the Illuminae trilogy. Illuminae is a sci-fi young adult trilogy, and it's set, I can't remember what year it was, but it's way in the future, and it's like space travel, interstellar travel. It's we have Cady Grant in Illuminate, who is on Carenza 4, and the planet gets bombed by Bitech, this big evil corporation, and then Gemina is kind of the aftermath of that, but it's different characters. It's Hannah Donnelly and Nick Malakov and Ella Malakova, so we're following that set of characters, and they're on a different ship. They're on, I can never remember if it's Heimdall or Hypatia, but I think it was Hypatia, but I could be wrong. But they were on that ship, and they have to solve another whole set of terrible circumstances. So I rated that book. Let me see. Gemina. Oh, I haven't filled in that part of my reading journal yet. So Gemina, I believe, was 4 stars, I think. I'll have to double check on that. But then, oh, I read one of my favorite books ever. So last year I read The Way of Kings, which is Brandon Sanderson's like amazing series, and I loved that book, so I wanted to continue the series this year. So I read Words of Radiance, and I must say that was a freaking banger. It was 5 stars, and it was absolutely amazing. It was everything I hoped for. So it was just continuing to follow Kaladin and Shallan, and following Dalinar and Adolin and all those amazing characters. And I don't even know how to summarize the book, so I might just say, please just read this series for yourself and take my word for it that you will love it. It's absolutely, absolutely, like, I don't even have words to describe it. Like, it's just so, so good. And then I read this book that one of my friends actually wrote. His book is called Are You Being Robbed? And it was a Christian nonfiction book, and I would highly recommend it. It's just talking about Christian life and finding your identity in Christ. And yeah, it was just very, very good. Solid, highly backed up with scripture. It was very good. So then I read Fearful, which is another novella from the Powerless series. So I read Fearful, and Fearful was a little bit of a disappointment to me. I personally loved all of the books in that series except for this one. Something in it fell flat for me, and we're just following Kit and seeing more of his backstory, which I did enjoy seeing the backstory and seeing more of what he was going through. I enjoyed that. But it just felt a little bit flat for me, and it just did not really speak to me. I think I rated it 3 stars, I believe, or 3.5. And then I read Obsidio, and Obsidio is the conclusion to the trilogy Illuminate and Gemina, which I already talked about. So Obsidio was not a 5-star, it was like 3.5 stars, and I just remember it was a bit slow to get into. It was a little bit hard to get into, and I think one aspect of it is that you have so many different characters, and like sometimes you can do that. Like Brandon Sanderson, for example, he has so many characters, but they all are done so well, and it, like, I don't know, there's something about Brandon Sanderson that's just like, he can do no wrong. I mean, in regards to his books. But Obsidio, like, there's something about, like, in Illuminate, there was Cady Grant and her set of characters, and then you have the second book, Gemina, with Hannah Donnelly and her set of characters, and then Obsidio, which we have so many more characters introduced, kind of bringing it full circle with bringing all of the characters together, but also another set of characters, and it just felt like a lot to me. It was just like a little bit overwhelming. So Obsidio was not a 5-star, was just a bit of a disappointment to me, and it's just following Asha Grant, which is Katie's cousin, and her ex-boyfriend on Carenza 4, and just bringing the whole story just full circle and bringing the resolution to that whole drama, and bringing relationships together. And yeah, it was just a touch cheesy in a few ways and just not really my favorite read. Then I read Ready Player 2, and so Ready Player 1, I had seen the movie, I had read the book last year, and I absolutely loved it. But then I wanted to read Ready Player 2, but I was scared because sometimes those series don't turn out to be as good in the second book. And I was right. I was disappointed. I was really not happy about Ready Player 2, and I think I rated it 2.5 stars. Like, it was so disappointing. It was following Wade and the whole same set of characters, but just like with a whole nother Easter egg hunt. But it just felt so flat. Like, I feel like the author did a good job of setting high stakes and setting up a really good challenge, but the whole execution of the challenge was so boring and it just fell flat, and I did not enjoy it. I was not happy about that book. And I literally feel like I need to reread Ready Player One just to redeem that book and remember how good it was. And then the last book that I read was Project Hail Mary. And I must say that movie, we saw the movie actually before I read the book, and I loved the movie. The movie was very good, and I really enjoyed the movie. But then the book just felt a little bit flat. So it was following Ryland Grace, and he wakes up, finds out that he's not on Earth, he's in space, and he needs to figure out how to save Earth. And so, yeah, I mean, it's captivating, it's good. The first like 30% of the book, the science kind of felt like it didn't matter too much if you didn't understand it. And then going on, I felt like it got so deep and heavy in the science aspect of it that it was really hard for me to follow and understand, which kind of meant that there were whole scenes and even chapters where it was hard to understand what was happening because I couldn't follow the whole description and everything. So I feel like that's why I enjoyed the movie more, because the movie just shows you instead of just describing everything. So that is my wrap up. Those are all the books that I read in the first 3 months of the year, and I am so excited for the rest of the year, and I have some great books coming up that I'm going to be reading. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye.